So Zcash Arborist Call, January 22nd, 2026. Our agenda, so core stack updates, Zcash Foundation with Zebra, former ECC team with Zcash D, core libraries, and Zale, CLI wallet, Zingo Labs with Zano, and Zcash D deprecation. Research and implementation updates, so Kedit with ZSAs, Shielded Labs with network sustainability mechanism, Shielded Labs and former ECC with Crosslink trailing finality layer, and Shielded Labs with dynamic fees, and then any open announcements and discussion. So what are Arborist calls? They are biweekly calls where Zcash protocol contributors convene to discuss upgrade timelines and process protocol R&D efforts, design and implementation of new protocol features, and identify blockers and unresolved issues. Purpose is to make core Zcash development accessible for a wider set of participants and provide more transparency for the community at large. Who can participate? Anyone interested in learning about Zcash protocol development can register at zcasharborist.org. If you want to suggest a topic for discussion or present an in-depth agenda item relevant to the Zcash protocol, email arboristcall@zfnd.org to request a slot or reach out to myself or Elise. Other ways to get involved, Zcash community grants, Zcash R&D Discord, and the Zcash community forum. And you can find these links by pointing your browser at zcasharborist.org. Core stack updates, Zcash Foundation.
Thank you, Alex. So in Zebra, since the last Arborist call, we've published a new release, version 4.0.0, added Shielded Labs' DNS seeder to the list of default initial peers, added support for using TOML config files with arbitrary file extensions, and new PRs have been opened with a minor fix to metrics and diagnostics when a connection heartbeat task exits, and adding mempool checks to more closely match Zcash D's mempool. There's also now a new DNS seeder written in Rust based on Zebra Network, thanks to DC, David Campbell. And the new DNS seeder features support for custom test networks. We also finally got a PR that was written a while ago, reviewed and approved, to improve error typing in Zebra State. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Arya. Any questions for Arya? Great. Core stack updates, former ECC, Zcash D, core libraries, and Zale.
Okay. So in the time since the last Arborist call, we've made a new release of Zcash D to advance the end of service halt, because I think actually EOS halt was probably yesterday for all of the previous Zcash D 6.10.0 nodes on the network. So hopefully the network's still functioning. The other things, so the former ECC team has been heavily focused on a couple of new zips over the past couple of weeks. So one of these is a proposal for a different approach to creating the V6 transaction format. The intent here is that we be able to make Zcash easier to evolve with new consensus features. There's currently a PR up on the zips repository. Let me find the number of that. It's a zip, or it's PR 1156. But the idea is to define a new transaction format for which the next parser change to wallets and other entities in the Zcash ecosystem will be likely the last, or it will at least make it much easier for all of the various consensus features that have been proposed for NU7 to be split up across smaller releases, which I think is generally desirable. So take a look at that PR and provide feedback, especially if you're doing anything with wallet development, or if you're responsible for any part of the ecosystem where transaction parsing is something you're interested in. The other things in Zale, we're continuing to work on Zshield Coinbase and on fully transparent functionality. So the legacy Zcash D wallet obviously provides functionality for sending from transparent to transparent, and Zale does not have that yet. So those have been our major focuses. Oh, there's one more thing on the specification front. In addition to the transaction format change, we are working on a proposal that essentially generalizes the lockbox functionality into a system of what we're calling consensus accounts. So the observation was we there's a key rotation mechanism that has been defined for NU7 that was originally intended for use to make ZSA issuance keys able to be rotated and to be used for keys used for lockbox disbursement. What we recognized was that the lockbox essentially, with that key rotation mechanism in place, becomes an account that is funded from issuance. Now, one of the reasons that we wanted to create the lockbox in the first place was because managing the thousands of UTXO outputs that the development fund was producing is a logistical hassle. And in addition, uh, it just we wanted a system whereby it would be possible to eventually have key rotation so that key compromise and whatnot could be or loss of keys could be effectively responded to. However, right now the lockbox is getting funded, and we've made a single issuance from the lockbox into a P2SH multisig. However, for example, the Zcash community grants outputs don't gain the same logistical benefits of not having to deal with the thousands of outputs. And miners have a similar problem of having to aggregate output value. So by generalizing the functionality of the lockbox, we can provide these kinds of benefits across the ecosystem. The other thing that is a potential benefit there is we may be able to eliminate the Coinbase maturity rule in that case. So in any case, we're currently have a draft for a zip for that in progress, and hope to have at least an abstract and a motivation and a rough sketch up today. All right, that's it for core teams.
Awesome. Alfredo, you got a question?
Yeah, so I have a question for Chris. You mentioned about Salad stuff. I just submitted an issue about I'm having a problem with the reg test, which is I can mine coins to my own address, or I can be a recipient of funding address in my own reg test network, but I cannot spend those funds because several reasons. I open a PR. One of the reasons is we don't have installed the shielded Coinbase function that you mentioned that it is in progress. I don't see a PR open for it. Do you have any time frame for that? Or any way I could collaborate to make it faster?
If you're responding, Chris, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. There's currently a PR open in Libra Zcash to fix a problem related to Coinbase maturity. That is a blocker then for finishing the ZCO Coinbase. I expect that we'll have a PR up either tomorrow or early next week. Shell Shively is working on that. The PR on Libra Zcash for the Coinbase maturity changes is ready for review though. And then, yeah,
Okay,
ZCO
okay.
Coinbase, that's the main blocker there.
Yeah, if I have that function, I can do the rest. I wrote some alternatives in that issue as well. If you want to take a look to that and see the problem in more detail, I just posted the link in the chat. Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions for Chris? Great. Let's move on. Core stack updates from Zingo Labs on Zano. Anybody here from Zano or Zingo? All right, let's move on to the next.
Well, Hazel,
Oh.
if you were talking, okay, yeah, she's having a
Sorry.
mic issue.
Testing?
There you go. We can hear you.
Doesn't seem to be
Yes,
working.
we can hear you very well.
All right, why don't we come back to Hazel? Were you about to say something, Hazel? All right. Zcash deprecation updates, former ECC, ZF, Single Labs, Paku.
All right. Yeah, what we can provide an update along the lines with what I mentioned in the last community updates. SLA beta is targeting its release for March, and we should expect a couple of more alphas in the middle. So we will be like reaching out to the alpha testers with that, and like coordinating with Gustavo from CF to create the appropriate Z3 containers and all, which we are happily seeing that people are choosing that route and instead of like building from source. So yeah, and then what else? Zeno is like well, I guess Hazel will tell us a
Testing?
little. Yes, hi Hazel, we can hear
Oh,
you.
you can hear me now. Wonderful.
Yes,
I
was just
physically
gonna
switched
mention.
headphones.
Okay, awesome. So then I'm personally continuing the I guess the path to light wallet D deprecation, that we're starting to walk that road by adopting the Lightline protocol canonical files for the gRPC services, and we're implementing the missing bits in Zeno, and that's currently under review.
Yeah, I can hop in here.
And then for Zeno updates, so I leave you to Hazel, who knows best about Zeno.
So let's see. We got some work in from Gustavo Valverde that got our Docker set up closer to the rest of the Z3 system, like Docker DNS hostname resolution is working now. We also let's see, there were some sync bug fixes. There's still 2 things we need to do for release. Nacho is working on getting the last pieces of our old cache removed in favor of the new one. And there is pass-through is feature complete, but it needs to be like tested and debugged and such. So I think we have everything in place to release, assuming it all works. But we're just in the stage of testing and tidying at this point. So again, I don't want to say a date, but we are very close to release.
All right. And one more thing that I have to add is that we're looking for contributors, community contributors for Zale. We got together with Zale engineers, and we went through the backlog and labeled some of the issues that are really good candidates for newcomers and like independent contributors to work on. Those are in the Zale repo, which is like github.com/zcash/wallet. And you can look at the issues labeled good first issue and help wanted and Z contributors needed. Those kind of labels will tell you that those issues are good to be worked on. And if you have any questions, any clarifications you need on what's needed to be done, please reply on GitHub so we leave that conversation documented. Or you can always like reach out through the R&D Discord as well. And I guess we will have news, more news about this kind of contributions in the next few weeks. So stay tuned.
Cool. Any questions for Paku or Hazel? Great, thanks both. Let's move on to the next. So research and implementation updates, Kedit with Zcash shielded assets. Anybody here? Doesn't look like anybody from the Kedit team is here. So we will move on to Shielded Labs with network sustainability mechanism.
Sorry if there's background noise. I'll be quick. So we're still waiting for the zip editors to review and accept updates we made to the zip 233 zip to add a requirement section and privacy implication section based on feedback that we received from an audit report late last year. And then on the engineering side, earlier this week, we addressed some comments and updated the zip 234, 235 PR. We're just waiting for those updates to be reviewed and the PR to be merged to Zebra. So super close to having everything completed.
There's one note, I think that, so I think that Strad was looking at some issue related to how the Zcash unstable NU7 feature flag, or not feature flag, config flag was being used. And so just as a heads up, the config flags in the Rust code are something we need to have kind of a unified approach to handling across the ecosystem because they are not enabled on a crate by crate basis. They're, when you turn on a config flag, you turn it on for all crates. And so we're going to write up some documentation for like exactly what and how, what should be guarded by those config flags and how they should be used so that we don't end up with incompatible usage in different projects.
Okay. We'll reach out to him in the signal group that we have for the NSM and I guess take it from there.
Any other questions for Jason on NSM? Great. Shielded Labs and former ECC crosslink trailing finality layer.
Yes, I have a general update, which is that we are doing our next workshop next week on the, hang on, let me find this, on the 28th. And so this is called Milestone 4C workshop. And we think it should have all of the functionality we set out initially to put into the prototype. So we hope people can show up and try that out. It's going to be really fun. Oh, sorry, I have some coworkers, some barky coworkers. And yeah, it's going to be fun. There's going to be a couple of wallets. There's going to be, which were there last time, but they've been improving. So one by the Zingo team that works on mobile, and one Shielded Labs is doing in-house. That's like a desktop and with like a visualizer. Those are fun to play with if you haven't seen it. And then we're going to do the workshop first and then sort of have a Q&A session that's more general about Crosslink instead of just about the workshop stuff, like how do I configure my node. That'll be the first section. General QA at the end. And then after this workshop, our team is going to circle around during a retrospective and do a checklist to make sure we've covered all of the main big chunky functionality pieces we were aiming for the prototype. And then if so, if not, we're going to make sure the next milestone adds those. If we have covered all of the basics, we're still going to do one more sort of prototyping phase that's sort of like cleaning up, dealing with any rough edges, making any tweaks to the UI that seem good for a milestone 5. And then around the time that milestone 5 is complete, we're going to start engaging more to assess community support. And we're going to begin a transition process towards productionization. And so stay tuned for that. Shielded Labs has an in-person summit in a couple of weeks, and we're going to flesh out our roadmap for 2026, especially for Crosslink. And so stay tuned. And in addition to the workshop, we also have an audit underway from a mechanism design expert who is mostly done and is waiting for feedback from our team. And we're still reviewing that. And we hope to have that published soonish. Like, it would be nice if it could be published around the same time as the workshop next week. And stay tuned for that. The big picture punchlines are that the Crosslink design doesn't interfere with the existing proof of work liveness, but it does introduce a risk of malicious miners being able to cause a stall of just the finality piece, which is somewhat obvious. And if that kind of stall happens, it would be very obvious to the whole network. One thing we've done in this prototyping process is cut down the design of the proof of stake stuff to be as dumb and simple as possible. And I think that was a great call, because now as we start analyzing these trade-offs with outside expertise, we can really decide, do we want to add any protections for each thing? So we've even stripped down some things that were in the original trailing finality layer book. And so now we're going to revisit some of those and so forth. So that is where we are at with Crosslink. We're about to, in the next month or two, transition towards working on a production protocol feature. So yeah, that's it. Questions?
Yeah, questions for Nate? All right, thanks, Nate. Next slide. So Shielded Labs with dynamic feed.
Hey, folks. Pretty short update on my part. Just getting sort of back in the saddle after the holidays and after some other work that I've done at Shielded Labs besides dynamic fees, but I'm going to pick this back up. I want to just shout out to Chris, who's been extremely helpful in a dialogue about this work. So thank you, Chris. And yes, hearts. and obviously the people at Shield Labs too that work on this. I am going to probably bring in another engineer from Shield Labs to start building out our own test net for this feature, so we can actually run simulations and long-term back tests, forward tests, and things like that. And yeah, it'd be good to start building and continue working on the fees.shieldedinfra.net site. That's sort of the main like promotional site for this feature. But it's also interactive and kind of fun. And again, Chris gave me some good feedback on that page and some sections I need to add, and thinking about the information architecture there as well, and how this can be succinctly communicated to everybody as we work on it. So yeah, looking forward to giving more updates here on the next calls. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And we've added this to our template, so it'll be on each Arborist call going forward until y'all say to take it off.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, open announcements. If you have some news or an announcement you'd like to share, please raise your hand. Okay, no announcements? Great. Next, open discussion. If there's a topic you'd like to raise for open discussion, please raise your hand. All right.
Is there any beginning of a plan to implement the extensible transaction format that that we've just created a draft zip for? Do we have a preference on what repository we want to implement it in?
We haven't gotten. I think that the draft is still very much in draft, so I would really like to in the next week or so get that draft firmed up to a point where it's something implementable, but I don't think it's quite there yet. With respect to that question, we certainly will be implementing it in LibreZcash in Zcash primitives. The other piece that needs to be worked through, so the transaction format change, like all that's been specified thus far is kind of the outer skeleton. The inner parts of it that are the sapling and orchard bundles, the transparent bundle, and essentially the other bundles that I think that it should activate with have not been defined yet, so it's not really implementation ready. And then also sig hashes need to be, or the sig hashing logic needs to be reworked because the signature hashes will in the future be over the bundles, and an important consideration is that wallets that don't know about certain bundle types still be able to correctly sign transactions that might make use of bundle types that might be mined in an environment where bundle types that they're not aware of are enabled. So there's still a bit of work, I think, before it's implementation ready.
Do you think there is going to be a very big difference between the definition of the bundles and the current transaction format, the fields that those bundles have right now?
No, I mean it's really just going to be pulling out the value balance fields from the shielded bundles. The transparent bundle is going to be basically the same, and then explicit fees are going to be a bundle. And I think that this should also, at this point, we should probably add the NSM as a bundle type as well. So that would be my proposal for the initial release.
Cool, thank you.
Other topics for open discussion?
So there's one thing that I might be jumping the gun a little bit here, but Mark, did you want to talk about or discuss with the larger group the thing that we talked about with respect to like core engineers writing opinions about proposed network features?
Yeah, sure. This sounds like a good place and time to do it. In the past, when we've done sentiment polling, there's been like sort of an engineer caucus that gets polled and votes separately from the others. So we were going to propose doing that again for the NU7 during the same polling window as NU7, and I'm just sort of stepping up here because I think a small number of people like Jason and some others are the ones who typically run these things. So I just wanted to help out. And I think it would be cool to do. And Chris suggested having people sort of write like a majority opinion and a dissenting opinion on each of the polling questions, because I think the engineers have a good culture of being able to disagree without it devolving into anything. And it'd be good to sort of model that to the community, and it would be good to have those opinions published so that the rest of the community can read them and sort of get the nuances and get the trade-offs and things like that. So I was going to send an email out. I've sort of been in touch with some point people at each of the organizations already, just to sort of make sure that the email I'm about to send is the messaging looks good, but it's nothing, it's fairly innocuous. It's kind of just what I just said. So I was going to send that out, and then we were going to use Helios for it because we can add and remove people while the poll is running, and participants can change their votes during the polling window as well, which may happen given the nuances and details that I mentioned before. Does that all sound about right?
Yeah, I think that this is something that's interesting and worth a try, because we have, as engineers, a lot of discussions kind of among ourselves, but the high points of those discussions don't always get surfaced to the community. And so, um, you know, this is, partially like something that I think would be great to happen, partially something that I think is going to be like yet more load. And so hopefully we'll be able to write these kind of opinions relatively quickly. This is just maybe an experiment. Uh,
Yeah, a couple of things there. I don't think they need to be super long. I think they just need to be complete, and they can be succinct. And also, participation is totally voluntary. So if we don't end up with a full set of majority and dissenting opinions, then we tried. Nate?
Yeah, I just remembered ages ago, Andrew Miller advocated for using a website. I'm trying to find it. I think it might have been Kialo. And but there's a genre, right? So maybe we could look around. And an interesting detail of that website was that it had ways to, it allowed a bit more ground up surfacing of text. Like anyone could write a pro or a con, and there was sort of a tree structure, I remember. So I'm wondering, I'm kind of interested in tools like that if they are helpful for this kind of thing. Anyway, I'm just remembering that experience. It seemed like some people used it a little bit, and then it sort of just faded away. So I think really the key trick here is to have a cat herder, someone who like owns keeping the thing up to date and sharing the result.
I'm kind of volunteering to be the cat herder here. The problem is we have 6 days until the polling window opens, so we might just end up going with Helios this time around. But that's interesting. Yeah.
Then I wanted to tack on one feature I would like to see, though, is not in 6 days, but rather than, it could be cool to have somehow we decide or the cat herder decides to bless one bit as like a pro and one bit as a con. But I really like the notion of anyone can write pros and cons, and the community can sort of uh, determine somehow which
Like
ones
a
seem like the most compelling.
like a Rotten Tomatoes for protocol features.
Exactly. Maybe.
All right, Jason.
Yeah, so a couple questions. One, how will you know what opinions are majority and dissenting without seeing the results from the engineering panel's poll? Like, I guess what I'm saying is it would make more sense for it to do like pro and con opinions, like,
Yeah, I guess it can't be majority, but yeah, I would just imagine people could self-nominate for, hey, I'm anti this feature. I
yeah,
will
yeah.
write the dissenting
Okay.
opinion. Yeah.
And then Chris, I had shared the questions with you earlier today. Do you envision a separate opinion for each question or feature, or would you just like pick and choose topics based on where there's a disagreement or difference in opinion? Chris, you're on mute.
Why don't we go to Alfredo and then Chris returns?
Yeah, so who are the core developers? The ones in the organization, anyone that had contributed with any of the repository or who?
It's generally, yeah, we don't have a hard rule on how we measure, if somebody is part of this contingent or not. But it's generally speaking the organizations that are in this call, uh, and like people like Han, Kedit, yeah, Kedit's in this call. Um, Kit from Red Dev, Harry Halpin from NIM, uh, a few others like that. But generally, it's the
So,
Arborist
okay,
Call.
so those people you mentioned, you are going to make them have an opinion on 7 different SIPs that are proposed right now.
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
think they will have the context to answer that. I don't even have it
Yeah,
myself to
let
have an
me.
opinion in every SIP.
There's a
So,
misunderstanding.
Okay.
can I
Yeah,
come in real quick?
yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so right now there's a bunch of different panels. So there's the ZCAP panel, which is like, the entire, like, has
Correct.
200
Yeah.
people on it. There's ZAC, which was maintained by the former ECC, which has something like 80 to 100. Then there's smaller ones like ZEC Hub and the Spanish community, Russian community, Korean community, Brazilian
Got
community.
it.
So this is just another input of just engineers. And I wouldn't think of them as necessarily like core protocol engineers, but just like the engineering community. And that's why you see people like Chris Goes involved and like Harry from NIM, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and in terms of these opinions, um, the way that I think that I would like to see it evolve is while yes, there's this, there's the sentiment polling piece of it. I'd kind of like to see it evolve into a discussion group or something like that, where, maybe we get everyone involved in a signal group or something like that, and, you know, informally poll the membership of that group for who wants to, who's in favor, who's opposed, who wants to write the opinion for each side, and sort of take that kind of approach, as opposed to like the looser, everyone submitting different pros and cons. Because what I'd like to have from this is kind of a a for the community to have, a pro view and a con view, each of which has some consensus among the engineers. And, it's always someone's option to write, their own like independent pro or con opinion. But uh, I think it would be good to have, okay, like here's an opinion and here are the 5 people that signed on to it or whatever.
Yeah, polling is going to start the 28th, so I don't know that we'll have the ability to have that out before polling starts because that sounds like a lot of work. But I think it can be part of a broader discussion that we have, after polling starts.
Just to be clear, coin holder polling will start on the 28th, not Zcap will be after that.
Oh, I thought we were going to start everything at the same time.
Okay, you and I can discuss that and take
Okay.
care of it. But yeah.
So I think it was developers Zcash poll at some point. Alex, do you remember that?
I don't think it was related to Zcap. I mean, there's been developer polling in the past, but this is a bit more sophisticated, I would say.
Yeah. But okay, I remember there was some like core developers poll in the past, but I understand. I see what you mean is more like 5 people agreeing to some sort of statement, what Chris said. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and it may even be the sort of thing where, we get in an email list or a signal group or something, and someone says, I have an opinion and writes it up, and then, others can sign on to it or something like that. It's just a loose experiment, maybe.
Cool. Other questions or opinions on this? Awesome. This sounds super cool. Thanks for bringing it up and pursuing it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other open discussion. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? Awesome. So next is obviously not July 24th. The next meeting will be 1500 on February 5th. February 5th at 1500. So hope to see you all there. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.
Thanks, Alex.